This show powered by Agri-Gold for Central Illinois. Your Agri-Gold reps Brett Lahr. He is your Agri-Gold reps for Central Illinois. Today's edition of Backroads of Illinois. We were Central Illinois agriculture source, and in the Midwest alongside in Central Illinois agriculture. We were glad you're here. I am Cesar Delgado. I am your host of Backroads of Illinois on Monday afternoon. I am glad to have you join us for this afternoon. I was in Kansas City from National Association of Foreign Broadcasters. I enjoyed our conversation with Mac Marshall from Balcony Consulting Firm and Arlen Serdman from Stone. I had a good conversation with Jacques Fatka from CoBank from Ferric, Ohio. We talk about the sustaining aviation fuel with a new administration for next few months with new administration. We get that for this week on Backroads of Illinois came from the National Association of Foreign Broadcasters in Kansas City, Missouri. Otherwise, this is your agriculture news and information on the commodity markets on Backroads of Illinois, sponsored by Agri-Gold in Central Illinois. We get a news from Illinois Farm Bureau of getting kicked out of the American Farm Bureau Federation from last week because of the country financial insurance company with non-farmers members. The Illinois Farm Bureau was sued against the American Farm Bureau Federation from last Thursday. The Midwest is done with the harvest season at record pace level. In the Midwest is the month of October. The field office in Illinois, they registered in 97% of the harvest season at the state. We get a taste of the winter. The temperature is dropping for this weekend, 40 degrees in Central Illinois on Thursday and Friday. That's your agriculture news and information sponsored by Agri-Gold and Kyle Bumstead from Alldale and Erickson, Nebraska. We were back that we were with Chip N. From Blue Reef Agri Markets. We are watching the markets for next few months with new administration right here on Backroads of Illinois. This is your open bell numbers of the commodity markets from Kyle Bumstead from Allendale Inc. Corn futures are up to 5 to 10 cents if they have. On December, corn soybean futures are up for November beans at 4 to 6 cents to the quarter. Wheat futures are up at 4 to 5 cents. Let's go with livestock markets. How is the cattle markets and hogs markets for today's opening? Cattle futures are up at 6 to 8 of the quarter. Feeder cattle are up at 4 to 5 cents if they have. Lean hogs are up at 4 to 5 cents. Crude oil are up to 9 to 8 cents per barrel. Dow Jones is up to 8 points. We're with Chip N. From Blue Reef Agri Markets. We are watching the markets for next few months with new administration. Here's Chip. How are you?
Doing well, Caesar. Glad to be back with you here.
Let's start with our discussion on the commodity prices with the new tariffs talk about the administration.
Yeah, the new lot of excitement around President Trump coming in to office here in his administration in January. I think around the 20th, give or take. The most obvious thing here for the grain market specifically are going to be these tariffs, right? During his first administration, we saw a lot of tariffs in place against China and other countries, but most specifically China. And they, kind of stopped cold in their tracks buying U.S. beans. To exaggerate that, maybe a little more this time is the fact that Brazil, at this point in the game, they're about 80% planted down in Brazil on their bean crop. So it's going really well for them. They're getting rain. They don't have a major weather problem the next 60 or 80 days in here. It looks like Brazil's going to raise a big crop. So that maybe makes these potential tariffs a little more impactful and painful because if Brazil has a big crop, China may not need our beans regardless of whether there's tariffs or not, because it looks like Brazil could raise potentially north of a 6 billion bushel bean crop. So lots of unknowns, with this new administration, but certainly we've seen the playbook before. It included tariffs, and that has a major impact right away to farmers and ranchers out there.
Do you have any concerns about the beans markets for next few months with China?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think it has to be. And I think that is something that the market's watching and has held us back a little bit. We've tried to rally at times in beans. It hasn't, the gains haven't been able to hold. And so I think the whole world's out there looking, saying, yeah, not only do we have the tariff situation, but right now we've got no major weather production problem that's apparent in the southern hemisphere going into their main part of their growing season. And that, in my mind, makes beans kind of the weak link in the entire grain sector right now.
Chip, how do you feel that any chance of getting down to the beans markets about the tariffs?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of a wait and see. Obviously Trump is known as the great negotiator and the deal maker. So, I think that his second administration is going to rhyme with the first one, but maybe not be an exact duplicate. So there could be some wild cards out here. Number one would be hopefully he can change the loophole, if you want to call it that, that allows Chinese used cooking oil into the United States to be used in our renewable diesel blends. That would be something that could increase demand domestically in its own right. So, the tariffs are a big unknown, but the whole administration is, and our brain goes to, oh, it's going to be bad because of the tariffs, but there could be some good things that no one knows about that comes out of some of these negotiations too. And so it's easy to think on the one hand that, how negative and bearish it could be, but we just don't know the unknowns of what maybe some positives could be out of it either.
How is the cash markets in Morton and Washington?
Yeah, cash markets are starting to come back a little bit, at least on basis. We've got harvest wrapped up. Everything's kind of tucked away in storage, whether that's on farm or at the elevator. We've had really good demand here in the last couple of months on corn and beans both. China's been a big buyer of U.S. beans here ahead of the election. Mexico and a lot of other our normal buyers have been buying a lot of corn. Basically a record pace on demand on corn between both exports and ethanol. And so basis has started to perk up a little bit. We haven't been able to get a whole lot going on the futures price side in beans, especially. Corn's holding its own, but the basis certainly has improved here since, really pretty steadily since the last week or two of harvest all the way into the end of November here.
Let's go with livestock markets. How is the cattle markets and hogs markets for today's close?
Yeah, cattle and hogs are seeing some gains nearby. December cattle are up $1.07 right now. December hogs are up 50 cents. We've seen a break, probably $8, $10 off of recent highs in cattle. They're starting to come back a little bit. The cash markets have dropped a little bit, and the box beef market has faded back a little bit in cattle, and so that's kind of weighed on futures. We do have a cattle on feed report this week. I believe it's Friday after the close. And so the market will look at that pretty closely. The hog side, hogs have really quietly been pretty strong in here. The cash market has been amazing for all through October and November, which is typically not a good time seasonally for cash hog prices. They've held together. I think they backed off just a little bit at times last week, but to be sitting here in late October and you've got nearby hogs, December hogs at $80. That's pretty unprecedented. And summer months, out there, well north of 90 in the last couple of weeks. So hog market has held together really well, and that's really good news for hog producers. They've had a couple pretty challenging years on the margin side and profitability. So hog guys, loving what's happening right now and getting some renewed profitability built into that industry, which is good to see.
How is the belly markets in the Midwest, like in Iowa and Minnesota?
Yeah, I think hogs and cattle. I think it's kind of one and the same, right? Basis has improved out west as well on the grains, and cash markets have held together pretty well for cattle and hogs. So I think as far as that goes, the cash markets, especially the livestock, seem to have been holding together pretty well for guys. And on the grain side, as we've wrapped harvest up, even out west where they don't quite have as good a basis as we do maybe here in Central Illinois, generally, we've seen the basis levels improve there as well. So things are looking good from that aspect.
Do you have any final thoughts or recap of our conversation about the beans markets?
Yeah, I would say that there's still 60 to 80 days ahead of us here as we get into the end of the year and the start of the new year, maybe between now and the end of January, first part of February, that we need to be on alert for rewarding rallies in corn and beans. I think they're still possible, probably led by corn. I think we need to kind of keep an eye out for opportunities to clean up 24 crop, to get a start on 25 crop. On the livestock side, I think we need to be pretty diligent because we're at a higher level, relatively speaking, than the grain market. So, I think we need to be pretty current with our hedges and sales on the livestock side here going into the end of the year, Caesar.
Thanks, Chip.
Thanks for having me on, Caesar. I always enjoy it.
This is Chip N. from Blue Reef Agri Markets in Morton, Illinois. All right, we are going to be listening to the National Pork Council with Lori Stemfer and Chase Adams in Kansas City from National Association of Farm Broadcaster in Kansas City. I talked to Lori Stemfer and Chase Adams in Kansas City from National Association of Farm Broadcasters. They discuss on some labor and information on Prop 12. Here's Lori Stemfer and Chase Adams. We were talking about the pork industry in Kansas City from NAFP Convention with Lori Stemfer from National Pork Producer Council. Let's start our conversation about updating on NPPC and demand estimate of the hog. Could you tell our listeners about that?
Sure. 2024 started off as a bit of a challenging year for our producers with economics. We were losing money but it's ended up to be a good year for us as we're making profits now. So we've had stronger demand, and that's helped lift our profits. I would say grain prices have come down, so that's helped with the economics also. Really just looking forward to 2025 and continued good hog prices and continued good demand for pork products in the market.
How concerned for the trade for next few months?
Definitely a concern. 26% of our pork is exported. That adds about $62 of value per head. And so making sure that those markets stay open, that we continue to have good trading partners that want to continue to take our pork and that there's no disruptions is really key. I would say also continuing to build new markets and finding new areas for our pork to go to will be a key aspect. And those are just comments that we're going to make to the administration to really let them know how important exports are to us.
Chase, what is your position in the NPPC?
I'm Assistant Vice President of Domestic Policy, so handle our government affairs issues.
What are in the works for the future?
Yeah, as we look at the future, we're closing out this Congress, so we're hopeful that we're going to get a farm bill done for this industry, given the challenges, both economically and the challenges from California Prop 12, as well as Massachusetts Question 3. We really need to get some certainty for producers, as well as the animal disease challenges that we're facing with African swine fever just off the coast in the Dominican Republic and other disease challenges. So we need to get a farm bill done yet this year. We need to make sure that we get the government funded into the next year. And then as we look forward into 2025 and the 119th Congress, I really expect that we're going to dig deep into some of these issues that are perennial. Tax, trade, labor, and immigration are things that I think we're really going to tackle here in the 119th with the new administration and the new Congress.
Laurie, what is the updated for the NPPC?
Well, Chase mentioned a number of the issues that we continue to work on, both at the end of this year and in 2025. My comments to our members and stakeholders have been to keep showing up, to keep having conversations with their elected officials. The saying is the world is run by those that are showing up, and so we need to keep showing up. And the public policy work, the advocacy work we do is built on relationships, and we often talk about telling our story, and so we need to be that voice for agriculture. If we're not there telling what happens on our farms and all the good work we do, someone else is going to tell our story, and it may not be the story we want.
What is your sources for labor force in the future?
That's a great question, and labor is one of our top concerns in the industry. A lot of our farms use a TN visas, and those are skilled individuals and work in our sow farms. There's been some challenges over the last year or so. There's been an increase in the number of denials, and those workers haven't been able to come onto our farms. We often talk about an H-2A visa, and that works well for crops and vegetables, those seasonal jobs, but our farms need workers all year round. So if there's any type of conversations on H-2A visas, we want that to be some type of reform so that those workers can continue to be here year round.
Do you have any final thoughts or recap of our conversation?
I would just like to mention a program that we introduced at World Pork Expo called the Young Pork Advocates Program. This is a kind of a limited membership in NPPC for individuals from 18 to 22 years of age. Allows them to understand what we do as an organization, get to see a little bit more about the work that we do, and have a chance to go out to Washington, D.C. And certainly want to encourage any individuals that are interested to check that program out. They can go to our website at nppc.org, look at it under a tab. These are our future workers. The young individuals that we have in our industry are bright, they're full of ideas and opportunities, and we just want to encourage them to be involved.
Thanks, you guys. On back roads of Illinois and Kansas City.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks to Chip In for today's program. We're running out of time, but you can listen to our show on YouTube and when you get your podcast. This has been Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. Have a good day.